Common mistakes when repairing brakes and how to avoid them. Did you change your brake pads or rotors and your car is still vibrating, making noise, or the pedal feels strange? Then be careful, because many times the problem isn't the new part, but a mistake made during the repair. And this happens more often than you think. Many people believe that repairing brakes is just a matter of removing one part, putting in another, and that's it. But it's not. In the brake system, a poorly executed detail can result in vibrations, uneven wear, seized calipers, a spongy pedal, or even unsafe braking. In this video, I'm going to explain the most common mistakes when repairing brakes, why they happen, what consequences they have, and how to avoid them so the job is truly done right. Because it's one thing for the car to break, and quite another for the system to be properly repaired. So let's get down to business. Why a poor brake repair can be expensive. The first thing to understand is this. A poorly done brake repair doesn't always fail immediately. Sometimes everything seems fine at first, but then the symptoms begin. Vibrations when braking, a spongy brake pedal, the car pulls to one side, strange noises, uneven brake pad wear, or uneven braking. And that's when many people think the part was faulty, when in reality the problem was the installation. I always say the same thing. Repairing brakes isn't just about replacing parts. It's also about cleaning, inspecting, sintering, lubricating when necessary, and ensuring that the entire assembly operates freely and without contamination. Mistake 1. Hanging the brake caliper by the brake line. This is one of the most common and absurd mistakes. When you remove the brake caliper, you can't leave it hanging by the brake line. The brake line isn't designed to support the weight of the caliper. And if you do, you can damage it, strain it, or cause a hydraulic problem that will eventually lead to a leak, loss of pressure, or a soft pedal. The correct way to do it is very simple. Attach the caliper with a hook, string, or wire to the suspension or a firm part of the body. It seems like a small detail, but it's not. Because when the brake line is damaged, the hydraulic system can also be damaged. And then we're not talking about a simple noise. We're talking about safety. Mistake 2. Mounting a new disc on a corroded or dirty hub. This mistake is also very common. A new disc is installed, but nobody properly cleans the hub where it sits. And what happens then? The disc doesn't seat flat. And when the disc doesn't seat properly, vibrations begin, along with pulsations when braking, and that feeling that something is crooked or unbalanced. Here, many people directly blame the disc, but often the problem stems from poor surface preparation. Before installing a new disc, thoroughly clean the hub seating area with a suitable brush, leaving the surface as clean and even as possible. When applicable, treat this area with a suitable mounting paste to prevent corrosion and future seizing. Another important point, if you replace discs, it's standard practice to also install new pads. Mixing new parts with worn or improperly seated ones will not yield the best results. Mistake 3. Repairing without cleaning the piston, dust seal, and contact areas. This is one of the mistakes that causes the most problems in the medium term. Many people disassemble, replace pads, and reassemble without cleaning anything around them. But the brake system accumulates dust, dirt, moisture, and wear debris. All this gunk ends up affecting the operation of the caliper, the piston, and the pad movement. For example, dirt in the dust seal can damage seals. Moisture can cause corrosion on the piston, and residue on the brake pad supports can prevent them from moving correctly. The result? Sticking calipers, uneven pad wear, noise, dragging, and uneven braking. Before retracting the piston, I would always clean the dust boot with a nylon brush and brake cleaner. I would also check that it's not torn and that the piston has no visible corrosion. And of course, I would thoroughly clean the areas where the pads move. Because if you don't clean, you're not really preparing the system. You're just installing new parts on top of old dirt. Mistake 4. Pushing the pistons in without checking the bleeder valve or the old fluid. This error isn't always mentioned, but it's very important. When you push the piston in to make room for new brake pads, you shouldn't do it without considering what happens to the brake fluid inside the system. If you push the piston in without paying attention to the bleeder valve or the condition of the fluid, you can force dirty fluid back into the system and carry contaminants to sensitive components. Furthermore, if air remains in the system or if the fluid is degraded, the result can be a spongy pedal, a loss of effectiveness, or an unusual braking feel. That's why, whenever you work on this area, you must consider the entire hydraulic system, not just the caliper. And at the end of the job, you must check fluid level, fluid condition, proper bleeding, and the absence of air or leaks. A soft pedal after brake repair is never a minor issue. Mistake 5. Not properly checking and lubricating the guide pins. This is another classic mistake. If the guide pins don't move smoothly, the caliper won't apply pressure evenly. And when that happens, you'll see things like uneven brake pad wear, noise when braking, uneven braking, or the car pulling to one side. The correct procedure is to remove the guide pins, clean off the old grease, check for wear, inspect the dust boots, and use the appropriate lubricant when the system requires it. And here's an important detail. Not all brake systems are treated the same. In some cases, lubrication is necessary, and in others, you must follow the manufacturer's instructions exactly. What you shouldn't do is reuse old grease or improvise with just any product, because a poorly maintained guide pin can ruin the entire repair. Mistake 6. Changing brake pads without checking discs, brackets, and the overall condition of the system. This is the most common mistake of all. Changing only the most visible part and forgetting about the rest. Some people change brake pads without checking the discs, or they change discs without checking the guides, calipers, brackets, or fluid. and then they're surprised when the car still brakes poorly or starts making strange noises. In a proper brake repair, you must check at least discs, pads, calipers, guides, caliper brackets, hoses, and brake fluid. In addition, the surfaces of the bracket where the pads rest or slide are also important. Over time, grooves or wear form in these areas, preventing the pads from moving correctly. And when the pads don't move properly, the same old problems appear: noise, uneven braking, and uneven wear. What symptoms usually appear when the repair is done incorrectly? This is where everything comes together. When a brake repair isn't done properly, the car usually leaves pretty clear signs. The most common are these: vibration when braking, when the disc wasn't properly seated or there are irregularities; a spongy pedal, when there's air in the system or the bleeding wasn't done correctly; the car pulling to one side, when a caliper or guide isn't working properly; uneven pad wear, when something isn't sliding as it should; abnormal noises, when cleaning or inspection wasn't done correctly; uneven braking, when the job was done halfway. And that's the important thing. Many times these symptoms don't appear because the part is faulty, but because the procedure was incorrect. Final checklist for brake repairs without mistakes. Before considering a brake repair complete, I would always check the following. The caliper was never left dangling from the brake line. The hub is clean and the disc is properly seated. The pads and their supports are clean. The piston and dust boot have been inspected. The guide pins move freely. The brake fluid level is correct. The bleeding process is done correctly. There are no leaks, vibrations, or unusual pedal feel. And the system was inspected as a whole, not just one part. This checklist makes the difference between a quick repair and a proper one. We'll answer some frequently asked questions. What is the most common mistake when repairing brakes? One of the most common is only replacing pads or discs and forgetting about the rest of the system, such as calipers, guides, mounts, or brake fluid. Why does the car vibrate after changing discs and pads? Often, this is because the disc wasn't properly seated, the hub was dirty, or there were irregularities on the mounting surface. What happens if the brakes aren't bled properly? Air can remain in the system, causing a spongy pedal, reduced braking pressure, and an unsafe braking feel. Can you hang the caliper from the brake line? No. The brake line isn't designed to support the weight of the caliper, and you could damage it. Do you always have to lubricate the guide pins? You must follow the system design and the manufacturer's specifications. The important thing is not to leave old grease in or use the wrong lubricant. So in summary, with brakes, small mistakes can lead to big problems. And often, the car doesn't fail immediately, but later. Now I want to hear from you. What mistake have you seen most often when repairing brakes? Or, what problem appeared after changing pads or discs? Let me know in the comments. Without further ado, I hope this video has been useful to you and you can solve your problem. See you in a next video. Bye-bye.